Hello everyone. In this video, I'm gonna describe what the difference between AWS Transit Gateway and VPC pairing. I have created one a documentation over here, what the Transit Gateway will doing and what the VPC will created, like how it will work, like what the advantage and disadvantages, what the benefits of AWS Transit Gateway and VPC pairing. So I will show you my screen what document I have created. Like I have provided detailed information about transit gateway and VPC pairing so that we can understand why we use VPC pairing and why we use transit gateway as compared to VPC. So let's show you my screen over here, like which I have created one documentation over here. Now here we see what is AWS transit gateway. Firstly, we have to describe what is AWS transit gateway and what is VPC pairing. Firstly, I have to show you what the way of transit gateway, how it is working, what the advantage, disadvantage. Then we go to next step of AWS VPC pairing. So AWS Transit Gateway. So AWS Transit Gateway is a network transit hub where we have to connect multiple VPC and on-premise networking through the central hub. This simplifies our network and put an end to a complex pairing relationship. Like they have to create a one relationship pairing over the networks so that it act like a router. And it will connect each connection over made ones. Like how it is created, like how they created with- connection with the VPC and how it provides some. It will work like a router. Like they have to connect multiple VPC on one transit gateway. So in this diagram, we will show you there's a Amazon VPCs. There are one, two, and three, four. These are four VPCs. They are already connected to AWS Transit Gateway, and there's a one direct connection over the AWS, and they have provided the VPN, the customer gateway. So these will provide the services to our customers, and they provide the connections over the network. So data is automatically encrypted in this way so that we can never travel over the public internets. So they have a inter-region peering connections like AWS Transit with together using the AWS global network. As we know that it's a transit network transit hub that you can use into the interconnect your virtual private clouds on the on-premise network. As the cloud infrastructure, they have expand globally, like how they connect to inter-region peering connections through transit gateway. So they have such ways like they have some infrastructure like AWS Transit Gateway connect your VPC and they have to connect to central hub. They simplifies our network and they put end to the complex peering relationships. They act like a highly scalable cloud router. So each connection is made only once. And then we have AWS Transit Gateway help you to design and implement network at scale by acting like a cloud router. Then we know about the benefits, like why would use AWS Transit Gateway. It's a cloud router. Firstly, we know that it act like a router, so that they provide connections to our customer VPN and like a VPCs they have. They have a AWS Transit Gateway Network Manager. Means like you can easily monitor your Amazon VPCs and edge connection from a central console. They have a traffic between the VPC and the transit gateway remains on the AWS global private network and it not be exposed to the public network. So these are the benefits. Now we have to understand why would the advantages of AWS Transit Gateway and why what is the disadvantages of AWS Transit Gateway. So advantages like they have allow for more VPCs per region compared to VPC pairing and better visibility. They have used the network manager, CloudWatch matrices, and flowy logs as compared to VPC pairing. Transit gateway route table are per attach allow for fine-grained routing, and they have to complex based on the region counts, like which regions you have created. But they have to create on the two uh, connections over the networks, like so they have to transit them data over the router, and they have to connect to the transit gateway, where we have to understand like why would use this VPC connections, why would use this transit gateway over the AWS account, and we have to create such VPC over here. And then what the disadvantages of this transit gateway? Like they have an additional hop. Hop is like the intermediate connection in the strings of connection. They have to link two devices. Like they have to introduce some latency over the network, and like how it will connecting our strings to particular network over the this gateway. And they have a bottleneck around region pairing links. Like they have some means you have to create some peer connections like VPC, but not in the multiple ways you have to use. So, and as per the price on the hourly cost per attachment, they have a data processing, data transfer, so that the price is highly costable over here, like while using transit gateway. So transit gateway concept, first we understand like why we use the attachment transit gateway route table over here. So you can attach following one or more VPC, means you have to connect multiple VPCs over here in the transit gateway. And you have the AWS Direct Connect gateway over here, and then to connect your peering connection with another transit gateway. They have a VPN connection to a transit gateway also, like they have used the route table, means we have to create VPCs, then we subnets, we have an internet gateway, we have a route table. Like they have additional route table, like we have to include dynamic and static routes that decided to next intermediate connection hooks on based on the destination IP addresses of any of the particular packet. So that we use any of the route table on the gateway on this transit gateway. Then we have to understand like how it did default use transit gateway attachments so that they have to associate it with a different transit gateway route table. Then we comes for the associations, like we have a subnet associations, like each attachment is associated with exactly on the one route table. So we have to associate that attachment to that subnet so that we can create some connections over the route. And route propagations is like a VPC, VPN connection, or direct connective gateway can dynamically get propagate route to a transmit gateway they have. So with the connect attachment, the route can propagate to transmit gateway route table by default. And VPN connections can be direct connection route, or they have to be an on-premise router using a border gateway protocol BGP, like we have used. And this pairing attachment, you must create a static route in this transit gateway where the route table to point to the pairing attachment. Then we have to go for the how is it working. So they have to create and access and manage your transit gateway using following interfaces like AWS Management Console and AWS Command Line interfaces. Management control, like we have to provide the web interface that you can use to access your transmit gateway. And AWS Command Line interface that can provide command for the broad set of AWS services, including Amazon VPCs, and is supported on the Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So these are the steps we have to follow in AWS Transit Gateway. These are the things we have to follow to create one of the Transit Gateway connections. Then we have to understand like what is AWS VPC peering? Why would you use peering? AWS VPC pairing connection is a network connection between two VPCs that enable you to route traffic between using a private IPv address or IPv6 address. As we've seen in this diagram, like we have a VPC A and we have VPC2, VPC B. So in this we have a subnet A and subnet B. Like they have on connection between these subnets. and they have on connection between these subnets. They have one CIDR range over here, and these are another CIDR range. So every subnet they have to connect their on, and these two VPCs has to be connected by these connections. I would use then they have used such pairing options so that we can connect one VPC over second VPC. What is pairing? Pairing is like a method that allows two networks to connect and exchange traffic directly without having to pay a third party to carry traffic across the internet. For example, in this diagram we see like VPC A, VPC B. If we connect to VPC B, they have not any connection between that. They have only that connection between these both. Like in for example, we have in a mathematics we have studied like A equal to B equal to C. So these all are interrelated to each other. But in this case, we are already connected to, if we connect VPC A, B, and C. In this case, we have only a connection between VPC A and B, not the connection C. So these are the things we have using in VPC pairing. And VPC pairing is a very complex architecture. We have they have For every pairing we have to connect multiple VPC. We have to create multiple accounts over here so that we have to connect, and this should be very messy things we have to get in this position. Like we have to remember like which subnet name I have to provide, which IP address I have, which CIDR range I have to provide. For example, if someone wants 10 VPC, so we have a connection of multiple VPC pairing over that network. So it is very complex to use VPC pairing as compared to transit gateway. And then we have to go for the AWS using the exiting infrastructure of a VPC to create a VPC pairing connection. Its sharing data across account become easier. Its sharing data across instance across VPC become easier. So data across accounts, like if I have creating a VPC pairing of two different account, and if we have to VPC pairing on the same account within two different regions, so that should be here so that we have not using that much part of like we have to connect two different account and two different regions, but we are not connected to one of the more accounts over here. Like if I have connected one account to my another account, and as we say that we have to go for a third account, so it is not possible in this VPC pairing. You have to connect only two regions over or two accounts over here, and we can establish pairing relation between VPC across different regions and inter-region VPC pairing. And we have to communicate with the EC2, RDS, and Lambda without needing any gateway, VPN connection, separate network appliances, and all traffic remain the private IP address. Then we come to multiple VPC pairing connection. As we discussed earlier, I have told you that why we're not using third account over here. So this transit pairing is not allowed. It is one-to-one relationship between two VPC. There is no support for transit relationship or connection between the third one. Like in this diagram, like we have VPC1, VPC2, and VPC3. We have a connection between these two. We have a pairing with this, and this account has a pairing with this. But if I go for the VPC1 to VPC3, that it is not possible in this. It is one-to-one relationship only. That is that is why we have called it transitive pairing. Then we have to comes to VPC pairing, like uh, means you cannot create a VPC pairing connection between VPC that have matching or overlapping IPv6 or IPv6 CIDR block. In this we have resource default and comments. Like active VPC pairing connection per VPC around 50 default we have used. The minimum quota is 125 pairing connection per VPC. The number of entries per route table should be increased accordingly. However, network performance might be impacted. Then we have comes under outstanding VPC pairing connection request. These are default. We have used default only, and this quota with the number of outstanding VPC pairing connection requests that you have request from your accounts. Then we come the expiry time for an unaccepted VPC pairing connections request. It would take 1 week, like 168 hours. This quota cannot be increased. So this is the fixed one. We have not increased to that much hour and that much week. VPC pairing does not support transitive pairing as we know. You cannot have more than one VPC pairing connection within same two VPC at the same time. Any tag that you create for your VPC pairing connection are only applied in the account or a region in which you can create them. And then you cannot connect to your query the Amazon DNS server in the peer VPCs. So this is the difference. Like what is VPC? Why would you VPC pairing a transit gateway? First one is a create a network mesh with the minimal configuration effort. This will not support by VPC pairing. This will support by transit gateway. Then reuse the same VPN connection for multiple VPCs. This service is not available in VPC pairing, but in transit gateway it will work. Then we come to full flexibility to configure routing between networks. These both services are provided. Bandwidth limitations. There is no limitation bandwidth. There is no any provide any bandwidth limitation in VPC pairing. But in transit gateway we will use 50 Gbps in this bandwidth limitation over here. Then we connect network across AWS and yes, both are working in this category. Then connect our regions. Yeah, these as we told that we have a different account. I have one account and we have a different account. We have to connect this pairing connection. It will work in both case. And then we have used any of the different regions in the same network. It will work in these regions. So these are the AWS Transit Gateway and AWS VPC pairing difference. Like we have to understand like why would use Transit Gateway and why would use VPC pairing. I hope you can understand these slides and you have to read this again so that you can understand more concepts over there as I've described this minimum documentation I have created, but in future I have created much more things about transit gateway and VPC pairing so that it would be helpful for me also and for you also. And so these all I have done today for this video. So thank you for watching this video.